The window blew out. Heat rolled across the lawn, and somewhere inside, a faint clatter echoed through the smoke. Mark Ellery tightened his SCBA straps as Engine 7 screeched to a stop in the narrow winter cul-de-sac. Dry cold stung the gaps of his turnout gear, but the front of the house glowed with the dull, angry pulse of a room and contents fire starting to creep beyond its first room. The smoke was a heavy gray, pushing out in slow, swollen breaths, the kind that always made old firefighters suspicious. Single-story ranch style, heavy smoke, no visible flame from A side, Captain Lorne called, stepping off the rig. Neighbors say owners are out of town, treated as empty until proven otherwise. Mark grabbed the attack line with his partner Ruiz, feeling the hose jerk alive as the pump engaged. They advanced toward the front door, boots cracking through thin ice on the walkway. His helmet picked up the first soft thumps from inside, something falling, maybe collapsing furniture. Normal for a fire in this stage. Still, he felt it in his gut. Engine 7 interior, Lorne said into his radio. Primary search, fire room on the right. Watch for rollover, that smoke's loaded. They masked up. The world shrank. Inside, everything changed at once. Temperature jumping, vision narrowing to a trembling orange glow that pulsed somewhere past the living room. Mark swept the line ahead of him, grounding himself in the steady scratch of boots over tile. Ruiz stayed on his left, tapping once on Mark's shoulder every few steps, their ancient habit to stay linked in bad visibility. A new sound drifted through the haze. Soft, high, not quite shaped like a word. Mark froze. "Did you hear that?" he asked, voice muffled in the mask. "Hear what?" Ruiz answered, already crouching to scan beneath the smoke layer. Mark waited. The smoke hissed past his ears, sliding along the ceiling. The fire popped inside the far room. Nothing else. "Never mind," he said, though his pulse carried a small, unwelcome spike. They pushed deeper, low and methodical. A couch sagged into a burned slump near the hallway entrance. The fire room sat to the right, its doorway flickering with the bright orange churn of active flame. Ruiz opened the line, sending a controlled burst into the seat of the fire, steam punching upward in a violent cloud. "Knockdown in progress," Ruiz called. Mark turned left toward the bedrooms. His thermal imager struggled through the density, but he scanned anyway, picking up vague shapes, dresser, a collapsed shelf. Nothing human. He swept again. The device beeped with low battery. He muttered under his breath. That's when it came again, clearer this time. A cry, short, sharp, like a child startled awake. Mark jerked around, nearly losing his balance. "Ruiz, that was a kid. I swear to God I heard a kid." Ruiz paused the line, listening. "Radio says no one's home," he said carefully. "House is supposed to be empty." "Supposed to be." Mark moved a few feet down the hall. The warmth here felt different, uneven, like heat had collected in pockets. "Engine 7 to command," he said. "Possible victim audible inside. Requesting confirmation." "Are we sure no one should be here?" Command answered after a beat. "All reports say owners are in Arizona this week. No cars on scene. Proceed with primary search, but use caution. Conditions deteriorating on the B side." Mark swallowed once. His mask tasted of dry plastic and smoke residue. He pressed forward. The hallway closed around him, walls tight, ceiling sagging in ripples. Something had burned hot in this section earlier, hotter than the rest. He felt it in the way his gear pulled heat into his shoulders. Then came another shift. A dull thud somewhere deeper in the house. Not structural, not debris falling. More like movement. He felt Ruiz's hand tap his shoulder again, more urgent this time. "We need to regroup, man. This heat's spiking." "One more door," Mark said. He didn't know why he felt pulled forward, but he did. That cry had been real. He'd heard enough in his career to know the difference between stress noise and a human voice. They reached the last bedroom door on the left, closed. No flame under it, no glow through the seams. But the knob was warm, not hot enough to burn, just lived-in heat. A memory flickered through him, the night he missed a victim by 30 seconds in a similar hallway, early in his rookie years. He pushed the thought aside. He reached for the door. Something on the other side scraped lightly, then stopped. Mark's breath caught. Ruiz raised the hose line, ready. Mark turned the knob. The door refused to move, locked from the inside. And then, through the mask, through the smoke, through the thick pounding of their own breathing, the cry came once more. Closer. The ceiling groaned. A wave of heat pressed down, and from behind that locked door, something small exhaled a trembling whimper. Mark tightened his grip on the Halligan. "Ruiz, stay on the line. When I pop this, be ready for anything." "Copy," Ruiz said, low and steady, though Mark heard the edge creeping into his partner's breathing. The hallway temperature had climbed fast, too fast, the kind of rise that told seasoned firefighters something in the structure was shifting in ways they didn't like. Mark drove the fork of the Halligan into the doorframe, wood splintering under the controlled blows. A pulse of hotter air pushed through the seams, brushing his gloves like a warning. He forced the frame outward, hinges snapping one by one. The moment the door cracked, a new sound rolled overhead, a muffled whoomp, subtle but unmistakable. Rollover brewing. "Move quick," Ruiz warned, sweeping the nozzle toward the ceiling to cool the upper layer. Mark shoved the door open. The room inside was almost untouched by flame. Smoke drifted in thick drifts, but the walls were clean, the furniture intact. A small dresser, a neatly made bed, a pile of stuffed animals on the floor, and near the closet door, something else. A faint shape on the thermal imager, small, low to the ground. "Victim!" Mark called instinctively, pushing inside, but when he crouched and reached toward the shape, his glove passed through nothing but swirling smoke. No body. No heat signature strong enough to be alive. Just the mirage-like flicker of residual warmth, the kind that sometimes clings to toys, fabric, or the floor after an object is moved. Moved recently. He scanned again, breath tightening. "I had a hit. Something was right here." Ruiz stepped in behind him. "Could have been the TIC glitching. Batteries dying." "I know what I saw." Mark's voice stayed calm, but inside something twisted tight. He swept the flashlight under the bed, around the dresser, behind the toy pile. Nothing but shadows and dust. Then came a soft creak. Both men pivoted toward the closet. The door was shut. Smoke curled lazily under its edge. The handle glimmered faintly in the light, and it moved, just enough to twitch. Ruiz raised the nozzle. "You want it?" Mark placed a hand on the closet door, feeling a tremor beneath his glove. Not from heat, not from settling structure. Something lighter, rhythmic, breathing. He cracked the door open. A gust of colder hallway air rushed past him, swirling inside the tiny dark space. His light cut through the haze. Empty hangers, shoe rack, boxes, a fallen jacket on the floor. No child. But on the wall, at knee height, fingers had traced through the dust. A set of small parallel streaks like someone had steadied themselves while crouching inside. Mark's throat tightened for a single beat. A memory. His daughter, years ago, hiding in closets during thunderstorms, knees shaking, breath tiny. He pushed it away. "We need to recheck the hallway," he said. "Whatever's in here isn't staying in one place." Before they could step out, the house spoke again. A deeper groan ripped through the walls. Structural shifting weight. The lights of the fire room pulsed brighter down the hall as flame reignited along the ceiling. Ventilation had changed somewhere, pulling fresh oxygen through a breach they hadn't found yet. "Engine 7, interior," command called. "Be advised, fire is showing on the Charlie side windows. Possible attic involvement. What's your status?" Mark keyed his mic. "Primary search ongoing. Possible juvenile victim. We heard vocalizations. Multiple times." A pause. Then, "Copy. Ladder 3 is forcing the back door now. Maintain situational awareness. Structure is degrading." Ruiz leaned close. "We should back out and reset. Do a second pass with better visibility." But the moment he said it, a new sound drifted from farther down the hall. Not a cry this time. A cough, weak, wet, and unmistakably real. Mark felt the decision click inside him. Automatic, older than protocol, older than fear. "That's a live airway," he said, already stepping out of the room. "We're going." Ruiz didn't argue. He opened the nozzle in short bursts to cool the rising heat as they advanced. The hallway was worse now. Smoke darker, moving faster, the ceiling twitching with tiny waves of fire. Their boots splashed through a thin line of water runoff from the initial knockdown, steam ghosting around their legs. Halfway down the hall, Mark stopped. The cough came again, clearer. From the end of the corridor, from behind a door that should not have been shut. A utility room, small, windowless. "Kid might be inside," Mark said. He stepped forward, but before he could reach the handle, something else struck the house. A sudden vibration that traveled through the floor and up their legs. A beam somewhere above them cracked sharply. Ruiz looked up. "We're out of time, brother." Mark put a hand on the doorknob anyway. It turned on its own. Just a slow, deliberate twist. And then stopped. The knob shifted beneath his glove. A tiny, metallic scrape echoed in the narrow hallway. And behind the door, something shuffled once, then went still. Mark froze, muscles tightening beneath 60 pounds of gear. Even through the mask, he felt Ruiz's breath hitch next to him. "That wasn't draft," Ruiz muttered. "No," Mark said quietly. "It wasn't." A thin ribbon of cooler smoke seeped through the doorframe. That bothered Mark more than the movement. Cooler air meant at least part of that room hadn't taken heavy fire yet, which meant a survivable void. A place a scared person could hide. He braced himself, hand steady on the Halligan. On 3. 1. Ruiz angled the nozzle. 2. The hallway ceiling popped as heat collected above them. 3. Mark yanked the door open and swept inward with his light. The utility room was barely 6 feet wide, packed with a water heater, storage bins, and folded winter coats. Smoke crawled along the ceiling, but the air low to the ground was clearer, almost breathable. The kind of pocket a trapped victim might instinctively crawl into. Something moved behind the coats. A small shadow, a flinch, a soft, choked breath. "Fire department," Mark called. "Call out." A thin sound answered, not a cry this time, just a terrified, shallow gasp. Mark dropped to a knee and pushed the coats aside. There, curled behind a plastic storage bin, was a boy no older than 7. Soot streaked his cheeks. His eyes were wide, unfocused, blinking hard against the light. He clutched a stuffed bear to his chest like a life jacket. But he wasn't the source of the earlier cry. Not entirely. His lips barely moved, voice almost gone. "Help," he whispered. Mark felt that word hit somewhere deep, quick and sharp. He'd heard it from adults, teenagers, neighbors at wrecks, but there was something about a child saying it that always cut through the noise. "Hey, buddy," Mark said gently, sliding one arm beneath the boy. "We've got you. We're getting you out." The kid clung to him instantly, fingers trembling against the rough turnout fabric. Ruiz stepped back to give them room, covering the hall with measured bursts from the nozzle. "Command, Engine 7, Mark called. "We have one juvenile victim, approximately 7 years old, semi-responsive. Preparing for immediate evacuation. Copy, Engine 7, medic unit is staged. Exit on the A side, be aware. Attic fire now pushing downward. Expect rapid heat movement." As if responding to the warning, the house groaned. A deep, uneven shift that vibrated through the studs. Ruiz's voice tightened. "We gotta go now." Mark nodded, lifting the boy carefully, adjusting his grip so the child's head stayed low in the cleaner air. The kid's breathing was shallow, wheezy, but present. A good sign considering the conditions. They stepped into the hallway. Heat slammed into them like the exhaust of a jet engine. The ceiling had darkened several shades, rolling in thick waves that signaled trouble. Big trouble. Somewhere above, flame was tearing through the attic and starting to push down through weak points in the drywall. "Move!" Ruiz barked. They advanced fast but controlled, Mark shielding the boy with his body. Each step stirred the hot smoke into angry curls. The hallway lights, the ones still hanging, flickered as wiring failed inside the walls. Halfway to the front living room, a sharp creak snapped through the smoke, then another. Then the ceiling above them sagged an inch, just one, but enough to make every instinct Mark had flare at once. "Ruiz, ceiling! I see it!" A glowing line of heat traced along the seam in the drywall, brightening by the second. Flashover risk. They had seconds. Ruiz opened the nozzle full fog upward, cooling the overhead layer just long enough to push through. The steam explosion burst around them, hissing against their helmets. The boy buried his face against Mark's chest. "Keep moving!" Ruiz shouted. "It's not holding!" They pushed into the living room, where visibility dropped to almost nothing. The fire room on the right had flared back to life, flame licking out into the hallway like reaching hands. The air pulsed with that low, rolling roar that said the fire was hungry. A loud crack split the room. A support beam above the fire room fractured, dropping a shower of embers that bounced off their helmets and gear. They didn't have time to go around. "Left side, stay low," Mark ordered, shifting the boy to his other arm so he could keep his right hand free. They crawled along the base of the wall, moving in short bursts between nozzle cooling cycles. Ruiz's breathing steadied into the practiced rhythm of someone fighting panic with training. Then a new alarm cut through the chaos, high-pitched, rhythmic. Not the house. Mark's SCBA low air alarm. He cursed under his breath. "Low air! We need the door now!" The front entry was only 15 feet away. Close, but not close enough in a house where fire was gaining strength by the second. The boy coughed weakly against his gear, each breath more labored. Mark pressed forward. Ruiz hit the ceiling with another cooling burst. Then the floor shifted beneath them, a sharp downward dip near the fire room threshold. A section of subfloor had begun to fail, weakened from below. "Don't put weight there," Ruiz yelled, grabbing Mark's shoulder and pulling him back just in time. But adjusting their path cost them seconds, precious ones. Mark's low-air alarm chirped again, faster now. They cleared the unstable section, turned toward the entry, and the doorway disappeared in a sudden surge of smoke as the house inhaled fresh oxygen from a collapse somewhere behind them. The main egress blurred into a gray void. Mark stopped cold. He realized with a sinking jolt that something else was wrong. The boy in his arms wasn't the only source of breathing. There was another sound, faint, behind them, a second set of breaths. In the house. The house inhaled again, walls flexed. Smoke thickened until the doorway vanished behind a gray curtain. And under the scream of his low-air alarm, Mark heard it. A second set of breaths. Slow, not panicked, almost measured. Coming from somewhere behind them in the swirling dark. He turned, tightening his hold on the boy. "Ruiz, tell me you heard that." Ruiz froze mid-step, nozzle poised. A few seconds passed, then he nodded once. "Yeah, that wasn't the kid." A structural snap punched through the room above them. Embers rained down like burning snow. "We can't go back," Ruiz said. "Fire room's flashing any second. But if someone else is in here, they won't be if we die looking." It wasn't denial, just the blunt calculus of firefighters who understood survivability profiles. Mark knew he was right. Knew it the way you know when a line is compromised or when a roof is seconds from pancaking. Still, the breathing in the dark pressed against the back of his thoughts, wrong and persistent. He shook it off. "We push to the door, now." Ruiz hit the ceiling with another cooling burst, carving a thin tunnel of visibility. Mark hunched over the child, feeling the boy's fingers clutch tighter around the stuffed bear. They moved, feet sliding, shoulders brushing wall. Alarms chirping, the house roaring above them in a way that said the attic had fully ignited. A sudden gust blew through the living room. Fresh air from outside. The smoke shifted, giving them a glimpse, the front door dimly outlined only 10 feet ahead. "Go!" Ruiz barked. They surged forward, crossing the living room just as the ceiling above the fire room tore open with a violent burst of flame. Heat rolled across their backs, a living force. Mark shielded the boy and kept pushing. They reached the doorway. Cold night air hit them like a slap. 2 firefighters from Ladder 3 grabbed the boy instantly, securing him and hustling him toward the waiting medic unit. Mark stumbled into the yard, Ruiz behind him, both men dropping to knees as their lungs caught up with the world. Mark ripped his mask off. The night air tasted sharp and metallic. His hands trembled only slightly, years of training keeping the shakes small, manageable. Captain Lorne rushed over. "You good? Status?" "One juvenile," Mark said, still catching breath. "Smoke inhalation, semi-responsive. He was hiding in the utility room." Lorne nodded, relieved. "Copy. Medics are on him now. They'll want a second pass when conditions allow." Mark stared back at the house. Flames pressed against the windows now, dancing inside the frame like frantic shadows. The roofline sagged. Smoke boiled upward in thick, angry columns. But that wasn't what held his attention. He was listening. For the breathing. For the cry. For anything. "Ellery," Lorne said softly, noticing the way he watched the structure. "What is it?" Mark hesitated. His throat felt dry. "We heard another set of breaths, behind us in the smoke, not the kid." Lorne turned toward the flames, eyes narrowing. "Could have been acoustics. Echo, fire does weird things inside a structure." "Maybe," Mark said, though the word sat wrong in his mouth. He'd spent half his life in houses like this, crawling blind, listening for the smallest human sound. He knew echoes. He knew stress. He knew hallucinations. This had been none of those. Still, protocol was protocol. "Once fire's under control, we'll run a secondary," Lorne said. "If someone's in there, we'll find them." Mark gave a small nod. It eased nothing. A medic waved from the ambulance. "Firefighter Ellery!" Mark jogged over. The boy lay on the stretcher, oxygen mask over his face, eyes half open now, little more alert. The stuffed bear rested beside him, its fur charred along one side. "You're safe," Mark told him. "You did good in there." The boy blinked up at him, pupils still wide from fear and smoke. Then, in a raspy whisper, he said something that stopped Mark cold. "I wasn't alone." Mark leaned in. "What do you mean, buddy? Someone with you?" The boy nodded slowly. "She told me to hide. She said not to open the door, until the yelling stopped." "She?" Mark asked. "Who's she?" But the boy's breathing deepened, slipping towards sleep as the oxygen worked. A medic gently guided Mark back. "We'll keep you updated," she said. Mark stepped aside as firefighters advanced hose lines, attacking the flames now pushing through the roof. A tower of steam rose into the winter sky, lit by the rotating red lights of the rigs. Ruiz approached quietly, helmet under his arm. "Kid okay?" "Looks like it," Mark said. He talked a little. Ruiz waited. "And?" Mark exhaled, long and slow, watching the roof collapse inward in a shower of sparks. "He said someone told him to hide." "Someone alive?" Mark didn't answer right away. A memory surfaced. The locked bedroom door, the closet streaks, the knob turning on its own. The cry deeper in the house, the breathing that wasn't his or Ruiz's. He let the thought settle, heavy but not dramatic. Finally he said, "We'll know after the secondary." Ruiz nodded. "Yeah, we will." The two men stood side by side, steam rising from their gear, watching the fire they'd just crawled out of burn itself toward surrender. No speeches, no theories, just the steady quiet that came after the worst part was over. 20 minutes later, suppression crews began overhaul. The flames had finally given up their ground. Only then, long after the tension drained from the scene, did Mark let himself breathe fully again. Not because the danger had passed, but because the house, for the first time all night, was truly silent, and whatever he'd heard inside stayed there.